Part 1. The Murmur of the World. We live in a pre-post world, pre-Columbian, pre-industrial, pre-med, post-racial, post-modern, post-doc, each designating an assumed transition, a threshold crossed over, beyond which the pre no longer holds sway. The moment of this presumed transition is only apparent in hindsight. But what happened in that moment to make it invisible at the time? Are we so beholden to chronology that we can only see what was and anticipate what will be? What about what is? That moment that is pre or post nothing, a moment out of time. What might it mean for a life lived to identify with the in-between rather than the before and yet to be? Where we are rather than where we might be or where we've been. We seem to spend a significant portion of our lives anticipating what will happen next and what lies beyond what happens next. Such anticipation tends to revolve around meaningful moments, ranging from achievement to distress. Moments that are either defined for us by family or society, or those that have been self-generated. Regardless, the tendency is to mark life as a sequence of events, each marking a distinction of what came before and what is to follow, a temporal logic. As such, it suggests a unidirectional spatial logic. Time moves forward, life moves forward. Spaces lie before us, and spaces recede. But what if this is wrong? What if, in fact, our lives are conceived primarily spatially, space born of time, not the other way around? A life in which an experience does not represent a moment or a threshold passed through, but rather a vibration sent out in all directions, a resonance which we are destined to relive. And what if everyone's experience was resonating in the world, piercing, producing, and altering the spaces of our lives, while ours affect theirs? The notion of events on a timeline signifying the passage of a life artificially detaches us from the sonorous spaces of our experiences. Understanding our lives on a timeline composed of starts, stops, and transitions suggests a collection of individuals, each on their own course. A course that may cross others' paths, but does not need to affect or be affected by them, with each crossing representing simply another threshold passed through, a chronological and abstract life without dimension. Life is an experience of location that does not precede our presence and is not demarcated by cardinal or geometric dimension. The place we occupy is a place that is always already composing and decomposing. It is a place out of time, and not before or after or beside or apart from other spaces. It is a place filled with resonances and reverberations of that which has been and that which is yet to come. It is an always incomplete space that will never fully materialize, nor will it disappear. A presence neither fully incorporated into its surroundings, nor fully detached. It is a space filled with and contained by what could be called the murmur of the world. Philosopher Al Lingus writes that it, quote, is the background noise of the world which cannot be silenced without silencing our voices too. We learn to hear the murmur of the world, which human voices continue and make resound for one another. Perhaps the best way to envision this space is a collection of echoes, some with and some without particular origins. As such, it is a space which is impossible to navigate. How do we navigate sound? Part 2. We live in the echo of our own lives. It wasn't until I was 30 years old that I learned that my maternal grandmother had killed herself long before I was born. In high school, an acquaintance had killed himself, sending shivers through the campus. It was not until the moment I learned of the context of my grandmother's death that the echo of that high school experience reached me. It was not a moment that I simply carried with me, dormant, until the moment of this new revelation. It was not a threshold crossed into another state of understanding or being. It constituted a vibration that I sensed 14 years later, a resonance likely felt in different places by all of the students aware of the event. Experienced my father's death years later, and my mother's subsequent depression that culminated in a note I found outlining her last days. Echo. Marriage, graduation, daughter, not transition, but echo, echo, echo. Separation, echo. Return, echo. My wife's attempts on her own life, echo, 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 echo. Part 3. Making in the Echo. As art educators, we expend a great deal of effort articulating the timeline of artistic production, pre-modern, modern, postmodern, perhaps in an effort to legitimize the very practice of art by ascribing a lineage of transitions and developments. Or perhaps it is to help students situate themselves in relation to this history. As we know, however, such chronology is filled with echoes never heard, echoes that mask and echoes that reveal. Likewise, the skills associated with artistic production are situated on a timeline representing a sequence of competencies or thresholds to be acquired and thus crossed before one can truly become an artist. Like a life, perhaps all forms of art can best be understood as tremors sent out into the world, each with its own sense of completeness, rather than a stepping stone on the way to another level of skill or understanding. Rather than guiding students towards expertise, perhaps the role of the art teacher is to attune the student to the murmur of the world, their place within it, and to help them produce and respond to and live in its echoes.